Not even close.
No?
Yeah, not close.
Scott is playing Human Reanimator. His deck list very close to the deck list that got second place at Grand Prix Quebec City. He does have the Burning Tree Emissary, Undercity, Informer combo, but he's found some room for 3 Avacyn's Pilgrim and 3 Huntmaster of the Fells. And then he does have his Unburial Rites, his Grizzly Salvages, his Faithless Lootings, and 3 copies of Mulch. So pretty traditional here in what he's trying to do. Super streamlined deck.
And Gary Wong is actually playing a blue-red-white deck, a little more similar to Jerry T's version than Joe Larson's. Has the Snapcaster, Augur Bolas, Reckoners, and Restoration Angels. Has 4 copies of Thought Scour, Azorius Charm, 3 Sphinx Revelation. He's got 3 Searing Spears and 2 Mizium Mortars and 2 Izzet Charms as sort of removal. And then he has like some 1-ofs, Unsummon, Counterflux, and Boros Charm, and Harvest Spire, obviously. So, but after board, he has access to 2 Tormod's Crypts, 2 Negate, and maybe 3 Geist. Maybe he would bring in the Geist in this matchup. But
try to race.
Yeah, but Tormod's Crypt's really the card that he's hoping to draw.
So we do see a Grizzly Salvage here. Overgrown Tomb's going to go to the hand. Duress, Huntmaster of the Fells, Angel of Glory's Rise, and Fiend Hunter are going to go to the graveyard. So a pretty darn good Grizzly Salvage there. And you saw him cast it right away on turn 2, just in case of any counter magic, syncopate, negate, what have you. He wants to make sure that that does get resolved. And we are going to see an Augur of Bolas here from Gary. Let's see if he's able to hit. He does. He finds a Mizium Mortars, which is the definition of unimpressive in this matchup.
Well, the problem with cards like Tormod's Crypt or Rest in Peace when you're playing Augur Bolas is that you can easily just end up sending your sideboard cards to the bottom of your deck, which is kind of why I like Purify the Grace sometimes. Because, you know, not only does it help you dig for your sideboard cards, but you're never going to be shipping it to the bottom of your deck, you know? So it's interesting. If I was gonna play some sort of removal, graveyard removal, I think you want 2 copies of the Purify the Grave and maybe 1 Rest in Peace or maybe 2.
True.
But yeah, I definitely like Purify the Grave. Also because it doesn't really, similar to the way the reason he's playing Tormod's Crypt is because it doesn't affect your graveyard, you know? You don't want to turn off your Snapcaster Mages.
We see a Mulch there from Scott. It's going to give him a Blood Crypt to his hand. 2 Burning Tree Emissaries and an Unburial Rites are going to go to the graveyard. So Scott is pretty well set up here. He has the white mana to flashback Unburial Rites because of Temple Garden, and we know he has his 4th land with the Blood Crypt in his hand. So we'll see if he's going to go for a value Unburial Rites. If he has, I'm not sure if he has all of the combo just yet. I think he's a little bit short as we see a Hollow Fountain here from Gary. Past the turn back.
And Gary does have a Searing Spear in case he needs to try to break up the Infinite combo. And I think he has a Boros Charm as well. And it looks like he boarded in Jace, which, you know, is interesting, but does he have a negate? Doesn't look good.
We see Unburial Rites, and it's going to target Angel of Glory's Rise. We'll see if he has something like an Izzet Charm, or...
I wonder if Gary should have just paid 2 life and played the Hollow Fountain untapped to sort of bluff Counterflux.
Sure, represent that or dissipate.
Yeah,
some sort of counter spell.
Because if Gary pays 2, it definitely makes Scott rethink, like, okay, well, what's going on here?
Yeah. Instead, we see Unburial Rites target Angel of Glory's Rise. It's going to bring back Huntmaster of the Fells, Fiend Hunter, and 2 Burning Tree Emissaries, which is going to give Scott 4 mana. We'll see if he's going to use that mana at all. And you see the Wolf token there from the Huntmaster. So all the guys are coming into play. Coming to play triggers are going to be on the stack, all that good stuff. And we'll see exactly how these things are going to be resolved. He's going to target the Fiend Hunter. The Fiend Hunter is going to target, the Angel of Glory's Rise, something we saw a little bit earlier in Joe Lissette's match, just to kind of ensure that if something does get killed, he's going to get all his things back.
Well, the thing is, though, is that if Gary just kills the Huntmaster of the Fells, he's got a Restoration Angel in his hand. So Scott can't actually put too much pressure on Gary.
Sure.
Gary can just be like, all right, fine, you got some humans in play, but you still can't attack me. I'm going to try to eventually draw my Boros Reckoner and Harvest Pyre you out or something.
Sure.
So Gary's certainly not out of this game just yet. He also has the Boros Charm, so if he draws a Reckoner, he might threaten Infinite Life if he can draw his Azorius Charm or something. So certainly not out of this game yet. Scott's generated 4 mana, so he might cast the Huntmaster as well, which is exactly what happened.
So Huntmaster of the Fells number 2 is going to come down from those 2 Burning Tree Emissaries, giving mana. You see another Wolf token and 2 more life here for Scott. Now it's on Gary. You see Gary's hand. We know he has the Mizium mortars and all that stuff.
I think Gary had to. I think Gary. Well, it'd be interesting to see if a supreme verdict, because I think he really wanted to Searing Spear one of those Huntmasters, and then untap main phase Restoration Angel to make sure it doesn't flip.
Okay.
Because again, he's not in bad shape if he can just make sure that. Yeah, this is not what you want to happen.
Yeah. So as we're seeing Huntmasters flip here, so Gary passes the turn back, and maybe Scott was a little bit hasty with the Huntmasters flipping, so he's going to shoot a Huntmaster right now with Searing Spear. And now the other one is flipping? It is flipping. Okay, so that's a little bit strange.
Yeah, because the thing is, if Gary's plan was to Searing Spear the Huntmaster, why not do it at the end of his turn and just play a Restoration Angel and try to dig for a Supreme Verdict or, another Searing Spear or something like that,
Yeah, or at the very worst on your own turn.
Yeah, because again, you're not in bad shape if you have a Restoration Angel and an Augur play. What is he going to do? Attack with all his creatures? Fine. You're not in the worst shape. It's just, and you're at 18 life too. But again, you need to make sure you're using your mana very efficiently, because now Scott's going to keep digging and doing other things. So you're not going to get a chance to counterspell anything like a second Burial Rites.
Mulch is going to turn over an Angel of Glory's Rise, a Woodland Cemetery, a Temple Garden, and it looks like a Burning Tree Emissary is going to go to the graveyard. So a draw 2 there from Mulch. You'll see Woodland Cemetery come into play, and now we are going to see Fiend Hunter take care of this Augur Bolas, and now the attacking is going to commence. So he's going to attack for 2, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, plus 4 is going to be 13. And now Gary is obviously in some serious trouble, and it goes back to what you were saying. I don't feel like a game plan was really crafted here.
No,
of what he wanted to accomplish.
That's the thing. I think sometimes players panic when something big like that happens. Like, oh my God, my opponent cast an Unburial Rites, and he got a bunch of creatures in play. But it's like, just calm down and think about what actually happened. It's like, all right, fine. He can't combo kill me. I'm at 18 life. If I kill his Huntmaster, he doesn't have that much pressure in play. I can play a Restoration Angel. But instead, he ends up just losing to a flipped Huntmaster, which wouldn't have flipped if he just played the Restoration Engine on his turn. So, again, it's just, and then, I think he just panicked a little bit, got a little nervous, was hoping to just top deck a Supreme Verdict so he didn't have to waste a Searing Spear. But, again, you can't hope in situations. You got to just play for what you have.
And even top decking that Supreme Verdict there, it doesn't do anything.
They get it all back.
They gets it all back. The Angel comes back from the Fiend Hunter dying, and then Angel brings back everything, and he's in the exact same situation there. So either way, Scott is going to win game 2. We're going to move on to game 3 here between Gary and Scott. And again, you said there was Tormod's Crypt in his sideboard, I believe you said?
Yeah, he's got 2 Tormod's Crypts. He has 2 Negates. He has 2 Supreme Verdicts. I don't know why he boarded in Jace Memory Adept. I don't want to board out any of my creatures. I could see boarding out the Unsummon. I don't want to board out Azorius Charm, Thought Scour, Sphinx's Revelation. I could see maybe boarding out a couple Azorius Charm, but honestly, I don't really see why. I know he had a Boros Charm in his hand. Not sure why you wanted to keep the Boros Charm in, because gaining infinite life against this deck doesn't matter.
Yeah.
Harvest Pyre, I like staying in. Is it Charm, I like staying in. Searing Spear, I'd keep in. Mizium Mortars is fine. But yeah, I would probably board out the Unsummon and the Boros Charm for 2 Tormod's Crypts at the very least.
Sure.
And then maybe board out 2 Azorius Charms, or maybe even the 2 Mizium Mortars for 2 Negates. But yeah, I definitely wouldn't board in Jace Memory Deck, and I wouldn't keep my Boros Charm
I
in.
think he wants to bring in Geistestain Traps as well, too. I think he just wants to try to get this game over and play a tempo-based game. Hopefully have the negate to counter on Barrel of Rights, and then keep smashing in for 6 of the Geistestain Traps, and just try to get the game over with. I think the longer the game goes, the more it favors Scott.
Oh yeah, I certainly like having the Geist in my deck more than Boros Record. I mean, Boros, again, in this matchup, it's like, that's not what's going to matter.
Yeah, that's trained Armadon.
Yeah, exactly. You want to get a card like Geist that can put some pressure on very quickly. Now again, Gary's got a lot of blockers. I mean, he's got like Burning Tree Emissaries, and Huntmaster NFL tokens and stuff like that. But you know, if you're on the play now and you can just cast a Geist, you're keeping your Searing Spears in. You know, maybe in that case, maybe he wants to keep in. If he's bringing in the Geist, maybe he wants to keep in some of the Mizium Mortars. Maybe he doesn't even want the Reckoner plan anymore.
Okay.
It's a little too long term, like having the one Harvest Pyre.
Yeah, you're trying to draw to that.
Yeah. Probably maybe board out the Reckoners and the Harvest Pyre, the Unsummon for like the Tormod's Crypts and the Geist. Try to fit in 2 negates too. Yeah, I mean, again, Boros Charm's not that bad if you're trying to burn him out too.
Sure. I mean, if you're on Scott's side here, just looking at his sideboard, 4 copies of Cathedral Sanctifier. He's not really under much duress for his life total. He has 3 copies of Abrupt Decay, which I would assume are going to be in there, assuming Rest in Peace. You can assume Purify the Grave as well here, so maybe he doesn't have all 3 Abrupt Decays, but I think, you know, you want to hedge your bets.
Yeah, you can't just lose to that card.
Yep.
Yeah, I think if you're a Humanimator, you have to bring in the Decays. And at the very least, they can kill a Boros Reckoner or, you know, the Augur if you want to try to attack through. So it's never. I don't think it's going to be a dead card for him, but it's a card that might not be great for him, but it's like basically insurance, you know?
And then you find a copy of Centaur Healer, 3 copies of Duress, 3 copies of Sigarda, Host of Herons, and then 3 copies of Olivia Valderin. So, you know, he's not going to sideboard a lot of cards in this deck because you don't want to dilute what this deck's trying to do. You want to make sure that you're streamlined and consistent every single game that you're playing the deck. But, you know, a card that he has in this deck in Avacyn's Pilgrim, I think, can safely come out here for those Abrupt Decays to hedge against a card like Rest in Peace and make sure that you do have an answer. And, of course, you know, he doesn't know that Gary has Tormod's Crypt, but those Abrupt Decays will take care of that. And, in turn, make sure that he just doesn't lose to some sort of card like Rest in Peace or Tormod's Crypt. So I think the Decays are almost certainly in this deck right now.
Yeah, the only issue I always had with that card is, yes, it will deal with the Rest in Peace if your opponent goes turn 2 Rest in Peace.
Yeah.
But if your opponent's smart, they're usually going to wait until they can get some value out of it.
Yeah.
And at that point, you know, if you've milled, like, in that game, for instance, if Gary had, like, a turn 3 Tormod's Crypt and just crypt him, that's devastating, you know? So the Abrupt Decay, or even a Rest in Peace there, Abrupt Decay doesn't do anything, you know? So yeah, it's an out if your opponent doesn't play it correctly, but if he plays it correctly, you know, it's usually going to blow you out no matter what.
It should just be completely backbreaking, as we do see Scott taking a mulligan here. This Human Reanimator deck is a deck that does mulligan fairly well, just like Dredge decks in Legacy and Dredge decks of years past. You know, they use their graveyard as an extension of their hand.
Yeah.
So mulliganing is not that big of a deal here. Definitely has some ways to undo mulligans as well in Faithless Looting, Mulch, and Grizzly Salvage. So certainly not the end of the world.
The only thing I'd say about Gary's deck is I think on the play, Gary's in a much better shape because if he's able to get one of his negates or counterfluxes, it might buy him a turn.
Okay.
Because again, Gary lost on turn 4 basically when Scott went turn 4 in Burial Rites.
Yeah.
And he didn't have a counterspell. But yeah, I think Gary's probably in a reasonable place right now. I mean, Scott's not just because Scott's mulligan 6, but because if he decided to come up with a good plan, like if he's bringing in Geists and he has negates and Tormod's Crypts, I think that's a good combination of pressure and sort of control.
Sure. That
can keep the game, you know, from spiraling out of control for Gary.
So we'll see if Scott and his bow tie.
Is that a bow tie? I was actually going to say,
yeah.
It looks like it's blending into the shirt. I couldn't tell. He is a well-dressed man.
I agree. Roberto Gonzalez, eat your heart out, my friend. He is coming for the title.
Yeah. Brian Kibler's fairly jealous.
Yeah, gotta be.
Of how well dressed Scott Seligman is.
Consistently best dressed, not this time.
Not this time. Why don't we do superlatives at Magic events?
Explain.
We should have you know, players vote for best dressed, most likely to succeed.
Oh, we have a tweet here that says that Scott looks like Ben Affleck.
He does look like Ben Affleck.
I agree with that.
Ben Affleck from Chasing Amy. Not Argo Ben Affleck.
No, definitely not Argo Ben Affleck.
He does not look like he won an Oscar. What is that? Is that a Tormod's Crypt?
That certainly is a Tormod's Crypt.
Oh my goodness. So he's playing around Duress and not Abrupt Decay, basically.
It's So we do see a Clifftop Retreat coming here for Scott. Let's see if Gary has a clock to go along with this. Nope, just a Sacred Foundry tapped, and he does pass the turn. Scott going to take a draw.
So it looks like
Scott drew an Abrupt
he
Decay.
just drew an Abrupt Decay, so he has an answer to the crypt. But again, I mean, Gary saw the duress last game, you know, when Scott Grizzly salvaged. So it's again, it's you got to pick your poison. Am I going to play around Grizzly? Am I going to play around duress? Or am I going to play around Abrupt Decay?
We'll see Searing Spear take care of the Undercity Informer.
So now, no matter what, he'll get something from his Tormod's Crypt.
The problem here for Scott is he just doesn't have a black mana source right now to actually cast Abrupt Decay. Abrupt Decay is going to be great on that Tormod's Crypt, but he just doesn't have a way to cast it yet.
Yeah, and Gary's got a lot of cards that can kind of like break things up. He's got a Searing Spear, he's got an Izzet Charm, so he just needs a threat.
And we're going to see another Undercity Informer here from Scott. You see Searing Spear is going to take care of that one too, so only two Undercity Informers left.
See a Cycle Azorius Charm. Yeah, there we go. So digging for a Geist, perhaps? Maybe a Sphinx Revelation, something.
Just wants to increase the velocity. Draws another Searing Spear. Steam Vents in his hand as well. You see Hollow Fountain being moving forward. Steam Vents is going to come into play tapped. Just going to pass the turn back to Scott. Scott's going to take a draw. Scott draws what looks to be another Cavern of Souls. 4 copies of that in his deck.
It would be incredible if he boarded in Sigarda right now.
Yeah.
Sigarda would be quite good against Gary's draw. Unfortunately, with the Abrupt Decay in his main deck, it's unlikely that he also boarded in Sigarda.
And he does just pass the turn back, just biding his time. I mean, at this point, the thing for Scott is he has a lot of draws that are good right now. So you see Izzet Charm, the draw 2, discard 2 mode. Scott can draw 2, actually he can't cast Grizzly Salvage, but he can draw to Mulch, he can draw to Faithless Looting, so he has some cards in addition to just those black mana sources that he's looking to find.
But he has to deal with the crypt first.
Yeah, that's step number 1, of course.
Yeah.
So we do see that second Cavern of Souls naming Angel for Scott. So maybe Sigarda is in there.
I mean, he's got Angel Glory's Rise, so at the very least he's going to cast it. But yeah, the thing about Sigarda is, though, like, it might be a better way to deal with, cards like Abrupt Decay, Tormod's Crypt and Rest in Peace, than Abrupt Decay, because it's a proactive threat, Because, like, with Abrupt Decay, do they have Purified the Grave, or do they have Rest in Peace, Like, what is it that they have, But if you have Cavern of Souls in your deck, and you're going to name Angel, why not just cast them,
Sure.
And not care, just say, forget it. If you, either you're not going to draw your graveyard removal spell, or I'll beat you this other way,
We see a Burning Tree Emissary here through the Cavern. Red, green floating, and just pass. Gary draws a Jace Memory Adept, and now this is the card that you were surprised that was brought in, and I don't necessarily disagree with you, but in this corner case situation of milling you with Tormod's Crypt, it's looking pretty good.
When your opponent doesn't have anything going on and you have a Tormod's Crypt to play, Jace ain't that bad.
Yeah.
You can mill yourself, draw a card. Yeah, not the worst here. But the thing is, Gary literally just needs any threat.
Yeah.
It's not like Jace just happens to be a solid.
And so we're going to see 10 cards go away. Temple Garden, Duress, Overgrown Tomb, Faithless Looting, Woodland Cemetery, Faithless Looting number 2, Abrupt Decay, Sun Petal Grove, Angel of Glory's Rise, and Stomping Ground.
I still would have preferred.
Couple source of black mana.
I would have preferred to just draw a card.
Okay.
I mean, think how good it is. Think how good it would have been for Scott if he's like, all right, in response, I'll Ancient Grudge your Tormod's Crypt. It's like, all right, thank you for filling my graveyard. Now I'll cast Unburial Rites and you have no counterspells in your hand. You're very fortunate, Mr. Wong, that Gary didn't have a way to deal with that Tormod's Crypt.
So now we are going to flashback a Faithless Looting. And keep in mind, of course, that he could have blown that Tormod's Crypt.
But this is so great for Scott, because if he draws a black source, Gary definitely is going to mill him for 10 again.
Yeah.
And then he can respond with the Tormod's Crypt.
Yeah.
So it's actually not that bad for him at all.
But he doesn't draw one. What he ends up drawing is a Mulch and a Burning Tree Emissary.
Well, a mulch is mulch could be a black source.
It could be. But with the way that he's tapped his land so far this turn, you see a Cavern of Souls has been used, and then a green source and a red source of mana. If he had cast that Faithless Looting through the Clifftop Retreat into Cavern of Souls, you know, and then he could mulch through a cavern, something else, and then draw into a black source.
Probably didn't tap correctly there, or maybe he was hoping to draw a Huntmaster. But either way, you're right. You don't need to use. You have 3 caverns. You might as well use one.
So Searing Spear is going to take down the Burning Tree Emissary that was attacking Jace, and Scott is just going to pass the turn back. Doesn't pull the trigger on the mulch. Just does say go. Really needs to find that black source of mana. As you do see, Gary's hand right now is Boros, Reckoner, Harvest Pyre. So he has assembled the combo, and if he wants to get a little flashy, he could Jace himself, mill himself for 10, and get a little funky.
Yeah, I still would rather just draw cards right now.
Hey, it's got a lot of modes.
I wonder what Gary's thinking. Nothing dramatically changed from last turn, so maybe he is thinking of like, oh, can I just kill him with Harvest Pyre right now?
And Scott is sitting pretty at 20 life, so I don't know how many cards Gary has in his grave right now. He did, Is It Charm, draw 2, discard 2. Has cast a handful of spells this game. And he's going to go up. He's going to mill himself. He's going to draw a card and mill himself. He mills a Glacial Fortress.
Thing is, if he plays the Boros Reckoner now, Scott has a Fiend Hunter, but does he draw a black source? Needs one badly. No, looks like another Burning Tree Emissary. So again, Abrupt Decay is an out to the Harvest Pyre combo too, so if Gary does go for it.
So here's a Burning Tree Emissary. And there's a mulch. It's a mulch. It's an Angel of Glory's Rise. A Woodland Cemetery and a Duress.
All right, so step 1 in Scott Seligman's comeback plan is complete. Get a black source of mana. Now we have to hope that Gary makes a mistake. Gary has 2 cards in his hand, I believe, a Boros Reckoner and a Harvest Pyre. Yep. So if he tries to go for it, Scott has an answer. And this is the interesting thing. I think Gary might have realized that milling Scott for 10 was wrong.
I think he may have realized it as soon as he saw the Abrupt Decay get known. Yeah. He was like, oh no. So now you're going to see Abrupt Decay.
Why would you... I wonder why he cast it main phase. He could have...
A little surprised by that as well. It depends on what's in his hand, I suppose.
No, but he doesn't... He has a Grizzly Savage, but still, you can't cast it. You only have 1 black source.
Yeah.
Like, if Scott waits on the Abrupt Decay, Gary might make a mistake and mill him for 10 again,
So now you see a Fiend Hunter. He just passes the turn back. Yeah, I don't think he realized that. Yeah, he could have maybe walked Gary into a trap.
Yeah, he could have sprung that trap. If Gary makes a mistake and just mills him for 10 again. It looks like Gary's going to keep trying to draw cards, but that's fine too, because if that means his plan is going to try to win with the Reckoner, which you have an Abrupt Decay for. Yeah, and Gary's not drawing much. He's still just got lands. He's got the Reckoner and Harvest Pyre, but beyond that,
So Scott's going to take a draw. See Scott's hand right now.
Yes, Scott has a... I think Gary's really going to regret not drawing cards from the beginning. That Jace should have been at 7, not 6. He should have been drawing cards from the beginning, and not milling Scott 10.
You see a Woodland Cemetery here, and he does just pass the turn back.
So wow, Gary draws yet another land, and he's almost there. I think he's trying to figure out. Oh.
So now he's going to mill himself for 10.
No, he had the decay.
Well, he used the decay to. He had an abrupt decay that he used to blow up the Tormod script. He doesn't have another one in his
Oh
hand.
no, I know that.
Yeah.
I'm saying he's gonna regret. So now it's game over, right? He has enough. He has 20.
Yeah, he should have more
Yeah.
than enough to do this. Now, if he was sandbagging an abrupt decay, then that's going to do it. But I don't think that he has one.
Yeah, I think Scott pulled the trigger on the abrupt decay too soon on the crypt. There's just no reason for it. Like you don't even have. He didn't even end up doing anything in his graveyard.
And I think if he had an abrupt decay right now, he would have cast it by now. So.
If he had a Restoration Angel, he could try to dig for that, but I don't. Pretty sure there's no Restoration Angel in his deck.
Yep. That's going to do it. So Gary Wong, with an innovative way of winning the game by milling himself a Jason Memory Adept, and he did leave in the Boros Reckoners and the Harvest Pyre, the combo that we did.